We are talking with Justin Boyer on the No Pants Show. I'm Susan Ricciatori, and Justin is sharing his path to full-time freelancing and crushing it in terms of money. So we are all here because we want to make a living, and we want to make a living as a freelancer. So the books that you like, Justin: The Rookie Copywriter's Survival Guide, Doberman Dan; The Story Engine, Kyle Gray; Writing eBooks for Fun and Profit, Maria Pease; Breakthrough Copywriting, David Garfinkel. And you've got another book?
Yeah, The Easy 9-Step System to Your First Book in 30 Days. That's by Nuno Almeida. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. So these are just a couple of ways, and I think, we'll talk about it going forward in future questions, but just to touch on the fact that it's good to diversify and to make sure you have different avenues of making money and not instead of just one thing. So we'll touch on that a little bit later. A couple of other books that they're not on Kindle Unlimited, but I did buy them anyway because they're so awesome. The Ultimate Sales Letter by Dan Kennedy. If you want to be a copywriter, that's like required reading. And Personal Productivity Secrets from Mauro Neville Thomas. So that one I watched on the No Pants Show. I went and bought the book immediately after watching that episode. And so far it's been so awesome to the whole idea of not organizing by time, but organizing by category, I think is like the mind-blowing part of that book. So that's definitely worth it to kind of help you own your day, own your schedule.
So, Justin, you are like any successful business person. You are starting to have some really great problems.
Yeah.
Organizing your day and organizing multiple clients.
Yeah, yes, definitely. At first it was, how the heck do I get clients? And then now it's, okay, I have so much work. How do I make sure it all gets done so that all my clients are happy? And, it's nice that they're paying you money, but you got to give them what they're paying for. So you got to be able to organize yourself and give yourself the tools and the methodologies necessary to make sure you get everything done and keep everybody happy.
And the people that you're keeping happy are the people that you've developed a niche. So I think that's one of the things that's the hardest for someone who's just breaking in. So many people in the No Pants Project open community on Facebook say, I'm not sure of my niche. And then they'll throw out 4, 5, or 6 and widely divergent niches. Mm-hmm. Talk a little bit about how you found yours and why.
So a little bit of my background, I actually was a software developer for almost 10 years so I started off as a software tester, then became a developer, and then was in software security for a couple of years as well. And that's what I was doing when I quit my day job. So in terms of a niche, it just felt natural to have tech and security companies be the companies I'm going after. So that's who I'm really writing for right now. While I was working at my day job, I was the one who evaluated vendor products, made recommendations. I use vendor products all the time. So now I'm actually out, pitching the vendors themselves and saying, I can explain how your stuff works in such a way that convinces people to buy it. And so I think that gave me a good common ground with them right off the bat, because all you have to do is say, hey, I spent 10 years doing what you do, and now I want to write for you and help you make sales and get leads. And, they sign up, because it's hard to have that technical skill set for a writer where I understand the technical details of how things work. So I'm able to write for developers as the audience. If they want to know how to use this tool to do X, Y, Z, and I need to sling some code, so be it, I can do it. Otherwise, I can also write to managers and executives and the C-suite to say, this is why this is so important.
How were your writing skills before you started reading the copywriting books, learning, taking the No Pants Project, honing your skills, and then getting a structure in which to go for your niche and your business?
Yeah, I think I was already working on my own writing skills on my own. So I started my own blog, a personal blog, but I just kind of started writing stuff on. And at first I wasn't sure what it was going to turn into. in the beginning, it was kind of like I wanted to set myself up as an authority. And then maybe I would get another job. Maybe I would get like one of those fancy jobs in a Silicon Valley startup, and all the romantic things that a software developer of 5 years ago would think about. um, but in the end, though, I actually found out that I actually enjoyed writing. And it was recently, probably about a year ago or so now, that I was writing for my blog, and I started writing for another blog, like pro bono, a blog called Simple Programmer. So they actually had a team of editors that you put in your post, and they had a team of editors kind of make it better. And I would ask if anybody, especially for blog writers, like even if you want to hire an editor just for a couple of posts, like your writing will improve a lot if you have a really good editor that's sitting there and telling you, okay, this is how you are better. Another good resource for that. I found a Udemy course that was it's called Ninja Writing.
Oh, I took that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that course. And if you just look that up, like I forget I'm trying to remember what the author's name was, but he was the editor for Wall Street Journal. So he knows his stuff, and the way he kind of, teaches you to get your narrative and all the way from the high level narrative down to the paragraph sentence structure, the words you use, all that stuff is good. And so like when you have a good editor on your side, they can it's a different skill set. Like writing and editing are two different skill sets. So, you can get into trouble if you try to, just throw something out there without a second pair of eyes looking at it. And that's what made me a lot better.
An editor or a coach. So yeah. Justin Boyer, David Garfinkel, the world's greatest copywriting coach, has joined the No Pants Show. He is watching you.
Oh, again, no pressure. You keep piling it on. More.
I'm so sorry, but I've got to tell you, David, right at the top of the show, Justin was saying that your book was one of the things that he turned to learn copywriting, breakthrough copywriting. I mean, it's really the Bible for copywriting, I think.
Yeah, most definitely. That's a book that you read multiple times.
Absolutely. Yeah, you get something different each time. Okay, so do you still do the free writing for the Simple Programmer?
Yeah,
site?
Actually I do. I actually have an article I'm writing now on developing your niche as a programmer. So it's because I actually am a coach in one of Mike's programs. And one of the things I always say is don't do free work. And I'm probably going to go against that now. But it's more like don't do free work if you're not getting something out of it. That blog gets 100,000 views a month. And that really helps to, kind of get your name out there, get a lot of eyeballs on it. And there's been other people that have contacted me because they read something on these blogs. So it's like a couple of my first two clients that were like my real deal clients actually came that way. They said they saw a blog post. They came to my website, they put in a contact form saying like, this guy should write for us because he's really good. So sometimes, especially when you're first starting out, I would say like once you're established, when I say don't do free work, I'm talking about like the clients that try to come to you and be like, oh, can you do a sample for us for free? And I'm like, no, you can't. If you want it good, you pay for it and you pay for my time. But when you're first starting out, I wrote my own personal blog and I wrote the pro bono stuff to get my name out there, but also to build a portfolio, to be able to say, when you go to your clients, here's what I've written before. If this is your style, if this is what you like, here's how I explain these technical concepts. If you like it, then hire me. And that's why writing is so great, because it's easy to do that. For software developers, for instance, it's hard to build a portfolio because you have to actually spend time building, this complicated program or application before you can show it off. With writing, it's just you sit down, you write a couple of articles, and you have something that you can show to people. And I found that to be very useful in the beginning.
So I want to go back just a second. By the way, David says hello to you, and he says that you just made his day. So I think this is awesome. And Donna is joining us from Glasgow, Scotland. I was right.
Scotland. Oh, I've always wanted to visit Scotland.
Hi,
David. Tunk you.
We're going to visit with Donna.
Yes.
So when I think that's a really good point, and I want to put an asterisk by it.
Mhm.
Sometimes people will say, especially if you're a creative or an artist, oh, can you do this for me and I'll talk you up to people? Or
Mhm.
I'm fine, 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 fine with free work that makes a point,
Mhm.
right? So, for example, doing a presentation, doing a speech that gets you out in front of your target audience,
Yes, definitely.
then it's no longer free work, it's
Mhm.
marketing.
Yeah, it's strategic. So like it's that's the distinction that I like to make. It's a strategic decision that you think will help your business, not a I'm really desperate for a client and I hope this guy hires me, so let me just spend all day working on this one thing and not get paid for it. As opposed to as a business person, I am strategically doing these things in order because down the road I think it's going to generate revenue for me.
Very interesting. So, when you started your blog, how many blog posts did you have on your blog?
Uh, um, I don't remember the number exactly. I wrote for about a year on my own personal blog.
Okay.
I would say at least, let's say 30, 20, 30, something like that. I also cross posted a lot of my stuff. So when I was first starting off, I actually had gotten some work for writing agency that focused on the tech space. And they were awesome too. Like the founder of that company is still one of my mentors. His wife was actually the editor for all their writers. So they had a team of writers. His wife is an amazing editor, and she taught me a lot about how to write good blog posts. But that was another way where I was able to cross post the posts I wrote for them onto my personal blog. So it was actually a good way of getting paid to keep my personal blog up to date. And it was still a lot of those posts are still some of my favorites that I've ever written. Like they're really on point, and so I use them shamelessly to clients to say, hey, check out what the work that I've done before. So it kind of depends on, like, don't be afraid of taking that kind of help. I know some people, you don't want to do like content mills or terrible stuff like that. But if you can find an agency that really cares about their writers and gives you quality work for a quality price, at least to start off with, you can build a really nice portfolio and get paid to build a portfolio by
And
using that.
get the support and help
Mm-hmm.
from everybody, so it's not just the exchange is not just money from them to you. It's
Mm-hmm.
also learning, education, help, contacts,
Yeah.
referrals, networking, all of those very things. That goes back to what you said earlier about make sure it's a strategic decision.
Yes, I mean that's the bottom line for all of this stuff. It's one of the things that Mike taught me was that idea of running your freelance business like a business. So not just the general idea of freelancers of just I'm just going to hop from project to project. I'm going to be on Upwork just pitching constantly. I did do that for a little bit before I joined No Pants Project, and it was horrendous. I I absolutely hated that. The idea of just it felt like a normal situation where you're putting in you're putting in a resume and you're hoping somebody calls you back and interviews you, and it's not a I have a business and I'm a professional giving you services in exchange for money. It was very like hunting for a job, which is what I hated anyway. That's why I didn't want to work for another company. I wanted to work for myself. So it's that strategy of understanding you are running a business. There can be multiple streams of income. It doesn't just have to be one, and you build it slowly over time to get to the point where you're running it like a business, not just out of my garage, going from project to project, not knowing where to go next.
So, one of the things that actually got you to say yes to being on the No Pants show was the very first No Pants interview, which was with Denise Crosby,
Oh yes.
Tasha Yar on Star Trek. So, Justin and I found out that we were both Star Trek fans. And one of the things that she said as an actor, if you go into an audition saying, oh, please hire me, you are way less likely to get the job than if you go in and say, these are the things that I can do. And Mike Shreve talks about that in terms of outcome independence. Did
Yep.
you have a learning curve on outcome independence, or were you able to do that kind of from the start?
Um, no, it was a learning curve, definitely. It's because of the way we're conditioned in a day job, 9 to 5. Um, actually, kind of doesn't really lend itself to outcome independence because, at least from my experience, your perceived job performance by your boss or your boss's boss or whoever decides has a direct income or a direct um, the output directly affects how you're able to pay your bills at the end of the week, right? You you are fearful of doing something crazy wrong and then you get fired and then you can't pay your mortgage, or are you going to get a promotion, are you going to get a raise, all that stuff. It emotionally ties you to, this is how I'm going to do things. I had to overcome that myself. When you're pitching a client and somebody says no, you still get that little pit in the bottom of your stomach where you're just kind of like, oh man, they don't like me. But that's not really what it is. It's just that I think what Mike Streves usually says is, they have to need you, but they also have to have the budget to pay you, the ability to pay you. And if they don't, then it's just not a good match. And just because it's not a good match at that time doesn't mean it won't be later. And you just kind of roll with the punches and keep on going. I had to overcome that with two things, actually. One was talking to clients and getting them to hire me. Another one was when I finished my work and the client doesn't like it or has a bunch of revisions or says this is completely the wrong tone, I hate this. Like the feeling of like, I'm terrible, I have no idea what I'm doing, I need to just go back to my job. Like all those things went through my head. Like this is not to say that I'm just this unicorn that had this amazing path. There were times where I was even thinking like, why did I even bother doing this? But those are those are the emotions where, you can sit there, you experience them, and then you move on and you keep on going. And what you end up finding is they still love you because what you do is you take responsibility for what happened. You say, oops, sorry, I guess I thought you wanted this and I was wrong about that. Let me fix that for you. And I had that happen to me where I wrote a couple of blog posts and they just did not like them at all. Totally wrong tone, don't like it. I spent the weekend rewriting it. And they didn't fire me. They didn't say like, oh, get out of here. They said, oh, thank you so much, I appreciate it. And and we just moved on from there, because the important thing is to take responsibility for what you're doing, and not to be the freelancer that just disappears when something goes wrong, right?
And I think it's also important to say, I'm assuming that most people wouldn't do this, but to say something like, you didn't charge them double because you made a mistake and then had to spend the weekend rewriting it, right?
Yeah. Yes, that's true. Um, it's part of the process. And it's just, you have to be reasonable as a human being sometimes, where if you buy something that's not quite what you want, um or you go to a restaurant, you order food and you're like, this isn't quite, they don't say get out of my restaurant and never come back here again. They say, oh, sorry, let me do that again for you, right? And and at the end of the meal, sometimes they may comp you, but other times it might be just like, oh, sorry, this little mistake. It comes out, it's amazing, it's perfect, and it's like, okay, fine, let's move on. It's the restaurant that yells at you and tells you to leave is the restaurant you'll never go back to again.
Absolutely. So before moving on to getting paid,
Mm-hmm.
Mike has talked a lot about how simple it is to become a really in-demand freelancer by being a good human. And that's part of what I'm hearing you say. And your posts in the No Pants Project community, that's why I reached out to you, because you were saying, it really is very simple. All I have to do is, and then you listed some things that I kind of think those are normal, but apparently aren't. So talk a little bit about those.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, I think the main gist of that post, a lot of it was um, being responsible for what you just signed up for, being on time, and on time means early. And the genesis of that post for the benefit of the audience. I had a client that they wanted to do 4 blog posts. They just paid me one off for each one. And I made sure to not only just do a really good job of writing it, but I made sure to stay in constant communication. And I will caveat that with they're an awesome client and they're really good. And so it depends on which client it is. But for this particular client, this is a dream client that had everything, was like, here's what we want. They got on phone calls with me to make sure I understood everything. Like the head of marketing there is an awesome guy. And so I had 4 blog posts and I made sure that they were always turned in on time, usually a day early if I could. Like this was a client that I'm like, I need to impress this guy, right? So turn him in, you be dependable. There were a couple of revisions, but it wasn't too bad. And then after those first 4, it was just kind of like a single project. Here's 4 blog posts, thank you. Then he contacted me and was like, hey, let's get on a phone call. I want to see how we can expand our relationship. And when I got on that phone call, it was basically right off the bat, the very first thing he said was, I want to put you on retainer. My boss loved your stuff. I loved your stuff. Basically name your price, like, tell me how much you want to make and, just dedicate and how many hours you're willing to dedicate to us each month. And we'll give you a retainer. So, I mean, that turned into $5,000 a month retainer for this client. Yeah.
Sweet. So was there any hesitancy on your part? Oh, maybe I should ask for 1,000, or maybe I should ask for, or did you look and say, how did you figure out that amount when he was saying, name your own price?
Yeah. So I think it was basically a negotiation a little bit. So I actually did give him a price that was actually a little bit higher than that, honestly. And he was like, well, that's a bit too much, but we'll give you, we're willing to do this. It turned out to be about $125 per hour if you look at the hourly rate, which is pretty darn good. And it's basically, and the great thing about the retainer though, it's like I'm reserving this amount of time for them if they need me. If they don't need me, I'm still getting that money and, and enjoying it. And even if it's like a little bit of a lighter month or they don't have as much work for me, that's the great thing about retainers. In order to really sustain your freelance business, I think retainers are the #1 thing you need, because that frees up your mind because you know that money is coming in. That frees up your mind to kind of go work on these other endeavors that could be future revenue streams or whatever that may take a little bit more work. But at the end of the day, I personally am very optimistic kind of person. You can ask my wife. So I am not shy about just jumping in and saying, hey, give me what I'm worth. Here's the amount of money I want, and just let them negotiate down. Most clients, you'll find most people, if they really want you, they're not going to say no right off the bat. They're going to negotiate. They're going to say, it's a little bit too much. Would you like to do this instead? And I think a lot of the fear that comes from freelancers when they try to quote a price, a lot of that fear, and I've felt it myself, that fear is like, they're going to think I'm crazy and just never talk to me again, right? They're going to just say, forget you, you're insane. And I've never had that happen. It's the fear that I don't even know where it comes from, but it's that fear of rejection. I've never had that happen. I have quoted really high prices for my stuff. And what has happened every single time is if they can't afford it, they come back and they say, can you do it for this instead? Right? We really want you. Can you do it for this instead? Sometimes I say yes. Other times I've had to say no because it's just not worth it for me. So it's again, that business mentality of I'm offering you a service. Here's what this service costs. Can you afford it or not? If not, then I'll move on.
Beautifully said. Absolutely beautifully said. I think that fear of the income fluctuations as a freelancer is one of the things that keeps people stuck in the 9 to 5 for longer than they need. Yep. So take us back to when and how you left your 9 to 5 and what you did and how you were feeling, kind of the process of that.
Yeah, definitely. So when I left, I was working on my freelance business for a while on the side. I started probably at the end of last year. No Pants Project. I joined that last December. So I think I was kind of actually one of the more early takers on that. And it was an investment. It was a big decision, but I think it totally paid off at this point for sure. And that's the point at which I really kind of made that decision. I'm going to be a freelancer. I don't know exactly when I can quit yet, but I'm going to do it, and I'm going to eventually quit my job. That's the first step, is you have to make that decision. The second step is you have to have a plan in place, right? So personally, what I did is I had goals. So I had specific goals that said, I want to save up this amount of money. I want to pay off these loans. I want to have this many clients. And I even set a date. I said, by this date, I want to meet these goals. That kind of gives you that motivation to keep going. Now, I mean, I'll be totally transparent. Did I meet all those goals? No, before I quit. I did not. But that gave me the mentality of working towards something, right? So,
And let me just mention, when
Yeah.
you do a goal and you ground it in time, whether or not you meet that deadline, it still has a greater chance of you meeting it because it has a deadline
Yes.
than if it is someday I'm going to do X,
Mm-hmm.
because someday never comes.
Yeah, and I think that's what I mean. We wrote it. My wife and I decided on the goals. We wrote it down on our refrigerator and put them up there. I put it in my computer as well to kind of get track against it. And that's what really helped me, because, like you said, if you say, "Oh, someday I hope I'll become a freelancer," that's not going to happen. It's not going to be enough. I think I actually wrote a Facebook ad about this, but Emmett Smith has a famous saying that if you it's a dream is a dream until you write it down, right? It doesn't become a goal until you write down what that dream is. So what he did all those years, when he got into the NFL, he wrote down, I'm going to win a Super Bowl. I'm going to be the MVP. I'm going to break the rushing record. He wrote those things down. He put them in his locker. So every single day he had those goals. And he accomplished all those goals. So similarly, like writing down what your goals are is a big step. Also, like, don't wait to put yourself out there. For me, it was, like I said, I got work from agencies. I got work from clients. I was always trying to get more clients even while I was working. And at first I think it's like there's the fear of how much time do I have if I'm working. That is a challenge. You're going to have to put in some sweat equity. And I think that's just the reality that most people will just have to live with. It's not going to be snap your fingers and it works. So there was late nights, there was weekends that I had to work. And that's something that you just have to live with. You might be like, sorry, I can't go out for drinks tonight. I got to send out 20 emails to prospective clients. But at the end of the day, like, put yourself out there. Don't try to wait too long. So I know for me personally, I do analysis paralysis with the best of them. I sit there and I try to find the perfect, I try to find the perfect answer before I start moving. And I had to shift my mindset. And Mike and some of my other mentors and coaches have, made that particularly clear, that you have to make some progress. You can't wait until everything's perfect. So that's something I've had to overcome myself. So I'm doing this from experience so that other people don't have to make the same mistakes I did. But if you just reach out now, put yourself out there, LinkedIn, emails, try to find, so that, that $5,000 a month client came from LinkedIn, actually. Somebody reached out to me while I was still working at my day job. He's a salesman for that company. And so he was obviously just, reaching out, trying to find people that are, that could possibly be interested. Eventually I said, hey, can you just get me in touch with your marketing director? Like, I'm doing this blog thing, I'm starting a freelance business. Can you do this for me? He introduced me, and like, the rest is history. We hit it off. I did the blog post. Now I have a retainer with him. And so, just that one little contact that you wouldn't even think would do that. So So, I have written down here, trust the process. I like that. Maybe it's a little bit cliche depending on which circles you run in, but I think it is true that every single opportunity, like don't hold yourself down. So I think a lot of people um, they may kind of put themselves in a little bit of a bubble and they don't want to reach out and break that comfort zone. But I've kind of learned that every contact is an opportunity, right? So there's one example is I wanted to start doing whiteboard animation videos just because, hey, this might be something clients might want to pay me for. So let me try to learn this skill. And so the company that makes the whiteboard software, I kind of did a little research on them and I looked at them, and I looked at their website and everything. I was like, these guys look pretty cool. So I just reached out on LinkedIn, like, hey, you guys need a writer? Because I think you guys are cool. I love your stuff. And he got back to me and was like, hey, we're always looking for writers. Let me work you into our calendar, and, I'll pass your details on to all of their people. And so, you just, I like to kind of like those unorthodox things that you may not even really think about, like, the tools that you use every day that you absolutely love. Figure out who to contact at that company and pitch them and say, I love your tool. I use it every day. Can I write for you? Can I write a blog post that tells people how to do X, Y, Z? Just, think outside the box, which is another terrible cliche that I hate, but I have to use it anyway. And that's the idea of just always be looking for opportunities. There's always opportunities where you least expect it. And just, put in the work and the clients will come.
Let's talk about LinkedIn.
Yep.
So how important is your profile? How much time did you put into doing it? Tell us a little bit about your LinkedIn experience.
Yeah. So LinkedIn is huge for me. I do actually most of my outreach through LinkedIn. I've done a lot of like sending out the emails and everything too, but I actually I found it more difficult now to try to find people's email addresses and figure out where they are. But if you look at, especially in the tech industry, the about page that has the leadership, or all the C-suite people, the marketing people that you're going to get into contact with, almost all of them have a little link there for their LinkedIn profile that says click here and connect with me on LinkedIn. So I found LinkedIn to actually be very useful, because a lot of people are more open to getting a connection on LinkedIn than just random emails, and you most likely will be seen a little bit more. And so I've had pretty good success with connecting on people with LinkedIn, and then just sending them a quick message that just says, hey, here's what I do. Here's my, expertise statement. Here's kind of in a nutshell what I'm able to do for you. If you're interested, let me know.
So let me ask you, are you
Yeah.
writing articles and posting articles in LinkedIn?
I haven't done that yet, but that's something I'm definitely been looking into.
I have a book for you.
Oh,
I
okay.
found out he's the world's greatest LinkedIn coach.
Mm-hmm.
Ted Promo, Prodromo, I don't know how to pronounce his last name. Prodromou. He's going to be a guest on David Garfinkel's podcast, the Copywriters Podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And LinkedIn is huge and this wonderful, valuable resource that a lot of people aren't using particularly well, just simply because they don't know how to use it.
Yeah, I mean, that's something I've even there's actually a note on the No Pants Project blog. There's a recent article that just put up on how to optimize your LinkedIn profile. And I've read through that, and even I was like, ooh, okay, I need to fix these things. And I think it's just an ongoing process, just like with everything else. So I have put a lot of energy and effort into making sure my profile is good. For instance, fast tip, in your summary, you're able to link to media and to links. So I actually have some of my best blog posts and my lead magnet, linked on there now, so that when people look at your summary, and if they read your summary and they really like your summary, you automatically kind of have a mini portfolio there. Here's what I can do. And even a link to like a lead magnet where they can get on your email list, and you can, start sending them emails. So that's something that that blog post had as an idea that I'm like, oh, okay, that sounds really good. So I was just doing that this morning, trying to, get things working. with that. So it's always an ongoing thing. But I think for me, having a good headline is key. Having a good summary, and also just a link to your website so that they can take a look at your website. And for me, I've just been, I go on LinkedIn, I try to find the people that are most likely to use my services. So look in your niche, look for marketing directors, sales directors, those types of people. And what I like to do is when I find somebody that I want to connect with, I go on the right side, and where it says like, hey, people also viewed these other profiles, like that's a treasure trove right there. Because if you find, VP of marketing for this company, and on the right side, there's going to be a whole bunch of other VPs of marketing, and you can just go to each and every one and send a message. And so that's what I've been trying to do, is just kind of organically grow all my connections and use those connections to get clients.
Sweet. And I would imagine that these are also the high dollar clients. Like you've got really select clients in LinkedIn.
Oh yeah, LinkedIn is great for that. LinkedIn is awesome, especially depending on what you find. I mean, I use so actually, it's funny that you say that. I had somebody actually reach out to me today on LinkedIn. I contacted her, I want to say like a month or two ago, and I just booked a discovery call with her today. So she, it's just from connecting with people and saying, here's what I do. Sometimes they connect, but they can't use you right away, but they still connect with you, which is awesome, which means when you post and you put those LinkedIn articles out, when you post stuff, like those connections are going to see it. And you never know if somebody's going to see one of your posts and say, oh, this guy's good. Let me go hire him. Or if a need pops up, oh, by the way, that guy's in my feed all the time. He does this thing. Let's call him.
Give us an example of that, because I know that you're dealing with that right now. Someone who's been in the pipeline for how many months?
Yeah, about 2 months. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's so following up is a big one. And so this particular client, I booked a discovery call back in, at this point, probably, I guess, July, August, sometime around there. And I got him on the call, and he was like super excited. Hey, this is awesome. We need this. And then he kind of like faded a little bit, and I kept following up. And he finally got back to me and was basically like, yeah, we want to use you, but we're still figuring out our strategy, our content strategy, what we want to do, and we'll get back to you when we're done our content strategy. And lo and behold, they did. They said, hey, our strategy's set up. We, are ready for you now. So he sent me an email. And so now I'm writing for him. And I'm actually interested. I'm ghostwriting for him right now, $500 a post. So, I just kept, you just got to keep following up. Mike Shreve always says, follow up until they say no, because you never know.
Justin, you said
yes.
that really quickly.
Yes.
Asterisk by that. $500 per blog post, people.
Yes.
$500. That definitely qualifies as a high-paying client.
Yep.
Tell us what a recent coach that you hired said to you about pricing and how you price yourself.
Yes. Yes. So she says, whether you think you're worth $100 or $1,000, you're right. So essentially, if you want your clients to pay you well, you got to tell them to pay you well. You are worth how much you think you're worth, is basically the point of that. And a lot of people from the beginning, they just put that limitation on them because they're thinking from a personal standpoint, right? They're saying, I read this blog, it took me about 5 minutes, and it's just words on a page. Why would anybody pay me so much money for words on a page? And what you need to do is switch that mindset, which is helpful when I said switching from the freelancer to the business mindset. When you run a business, you start to realize that paying $500 for a blog post that could then bring in a lead that could turn into a $100,000 contract is a trade you make every day of the week. So $500 is nothing. It's really not. And you can consistently get $200 to $400 per blog post if you're good at what you do and you find the high paying clients. I'm getting $500 per post because I'm ghostwriting. So when you're ghostwriting, you always raise your rates because of the fact that you're not getting the same notoriety that you normally would. So you always raise your rates for that. My general blog post price is $300 a post. For most people, if I can put my byline on it, I'll do $300 a post for my niche. And some clients are higher, some clients are lower, but it's around that ballpark. But again, it's based on what you think, not only what you think you're worth, but you have to understand what you're worth to the company. Because if you're really good at doing this, you're putting dollars in their pockets, especially when it comes to copywriting too. And David can attest to this, that like, you know, if I pay you $1,000 and you can guarantee that $1,000 turns into 10,000 for me, then you make that trade every day of the week. So from a personal perspective, you may be sitting there saying $1,000 is a lot of money. Why would you pay me for that? But it's because on their end, they see it as an investment, not as a cost. So it's not $1,000 for a TV that just sits in your family room and doesn't generate money. It's $1,000 for a money generating asset. And that's the mindset shift that'll help you kind of charge more, and from the get-go, be able to charge your services and those higher fees, because you know you're providing a service that will then generate an asset for them, that will be generating revenue for them. So then you are entitled to a percentage of that revenue.
I love your examples, and you have an example of the mindset. A great example. I walk into a store and, you know, talking about negotiating and stuff. Tell us that example. I think it brings it home beautifully.
Yeah. So you talk to Apple. Let's say you talk to Apple and you say, Apple, I just don't want to pay $600 for this iPad. I'm sorry, I'm not going to. Can you please give it to me for $100 instead? And they'll tell you, nope, go buy an Android, right? Because they'll say that then you're not the customer for us, right? You know, they are they know what they're worth, they know the value they provide, and they charge according to that value. And you need to be the same way as Apple. Apple has a specific set of people that they are targeting, and a specific set of people that they don't want to be their customers. And so it's the same way with any business. One of the biggest problems people have is they try to serve everybody. So if you are trying to make everybody happy, you're not going to be happy. You target those clients that actually have the money to pay you and are willing to pay you. And you know, I'll caveat with like the client that I just said paid me $500. They didn't even blink when I said that, because I said, I'm going to be ghostwriting for you. If $500 is my fee, he's like, fine. All right, invoice me. Boom, let's get going. Right? Like those are the clients you want, instead of the clients that, and I've talked to some prospects that are a little bit like, ooh, that sounds a bit much. You know, what about, you know, here's my budget. How about this? And I do the math and I'm like, that doesn't work. So it's sorry, no, and move on. And I'm happy I did, because those are usually the clients. And this is something that Mike always says too. The clients that are the ones that are too afraid to pay you are usually the worst clients. They're going to micromanage you. They're going to be super picky, and they're not going to give you the autonomy you need to actually do your job well. The clients that I have that are high paying clients, or the retainers, the big price clients, they let me do what I want to do. They're not on top of me. They just, you know, they check in every once in a while. They, you know, make sure everything's good. But when it comes to writing it, you know, it's a totally different experience when you find those clients, because, you know, like for one client, I'm writing a white paper, and it's like, you know, it's not every single day, hey, how's that white paper coming along? Are you done yet? Are you done yet? Are you done yet? Are you done yet? Like, it's just, hey, I know you're doing your work, and, you know, give me a deadline. Okay, cool. I'm not going to bother you until that deadline. So, you know, there's a difference in mentality there that seems to, it's a strange phenomenon that the higher paying clients are actually the best paying clients. You know, you'd think it'd be the reverse. You think that because they're giving you so much money, they'd be on top of you, but actually it's the complete opposite. It's all about mindset and where their mindset is compared to those other cheap ones.
So finding the high paying clients, you've got a
Mm-hmm.
couple specific recommendations,
Yep.
including networking, and then how to find companies in your niche that are well funded. Talk to us about that.
Yes. So one of my favorite websites to go to is Crunchbase. And especially in the technical niche, Crunchbase has been awesome for me, because I look up companies on there, and basically it's a database of companies and all of their funding from VC perspective. So it's like, if you find a client, you find a company, you're like, these guys look kind of interesting, you can actually look them up on Crunchbase and they'll say, oh, so far they've gotten, $700 million in funding. You're like, okay, cool. They have money to spend. Right. And then you go to another client and they're like, oh, well, they only have $100,000 in funding or 200,000 or whatever. Then you know, like, okay, I mean, you can still pitch them and see, but you kind of lower your expectations a little bit and say, okay, they may not be willing to pay my highest price. And some of them you may just not even bother with. So I think that's actually a really good, it's a sneaky little tool to like kind of get you a little bit into, now there's also revenue and other things that go into it, but that gives you a little bit of a pick, because of, I mean, I focused a lot on, startups especially. That's a great thing to get in on is like when when they have the funding and they know that they need to ramp up. Those are the companies that would be willing to hire freelancers in the first place. And two, they're going to be willing to pay you the money because again, they see it as an investment, as opposed, and as an opportunity for growth, as opposed to kind of seeing you as the ball and chain that is just, taking money from them.
Mm-hmm. Buying business cards. I love the way you said that. So you talk about networking events and conferences. I personally love to go to conferences.
Oh, conferences are awesome. I do love conferences. Conferences are great in your niche because people are much more likely to hire you when they've met you face to face. I also like meetups. So go to meetup.com and look in your local area for, there's actually, I just kind of looked at this earlier, and there's a local entrepreneur group that's meeting up next Thursday. And I said, okay, I think I need to be there. Right. It doesn't even matter what they are. If you're, I'm trying to develop the growth mindset. So it's kind of like, sometimes you look at meetups and you're like, okay, this is tech entrepreneurs and I'm in the tech niche or whatever. But especially when it comes to my copywriting business, where I want to get it more, I want to expand more in the email copywriting space, just going and connecting with just local entrepreneurs in general is always a good place to go. So meetup.com is a great place just to say, I can go locally, like, because conferences are awesome, but sometimes they're expensive. That's just the way it is. And if you're the one that has to foot the bill, back when I was in my day job, my company foot the bill, and I was, and I got some free marketing out of that. Thank you. But right now I have to foot the bill. So if it's a little bit too expensive, then local meetups are a great way where you can just drive 20, 30 minutes and meet, 100 people that could be potential clients. And if they're not, they're a great source for referrals. So even if you just hand out your business cards, it's a great investment. Always buy business cards, and you just hand out your business cards. I've even seen some meetup groups that's what they are for. Like they're called like a referral group, and they're there specifically for that purpose of, give us your card, bring 20 business cards, and we will we'll refer you business based on what we know people need. So those are those little like, those little ways of getting clients. Cause I think the personal face-to-face is a big part of it. So, the sending out the emails is great. Sending out the LinkedIn connections is great, but you're going to have a lower conversion rate. That's just the bottom line. Because of the fact that it's just, they're getting inundated with tons of email and you're just another email in there. Even if you're good at it, you're going to have a lower conversion rate. You go you go in person and speak to somebody and you really connect with them one-on-one, like that personal connection puts you at the head of the list for any work or freelancers, whether it's by a referral or not. So, like I said, some of my clients now are referrals, and I even have some prospects that other people have referred to me that I'm talking to right now. So, it's a big part of the business is referrals.
Let's end with you talking about the growth mindset, because I think that is absolutely perfect. That's when your freelancing fits into your life rather than your life getting consumed by your job or your freelancing, your career. So talk a little bit about growth mindset and passive income and how you are setting yourself up for success in the future.
Yeah. So Yeah, I think growth mindset is important, especially when you're running a business. The style of freelancer that Mike likes to um, attract to the No Pants Project um, is the style that wants a lifestyle business. They want to be able to, do what they want to do. They want to travel. They want to do volunteer work. Whatever it is that they want to do, and their business is supporting their lifestyle, not that their life is all about their business. Um, and there's always a limit to that, right? So if you're the kind of person that says, because right now I'm keeping a 3-day a week schedule for the most part, maybe 3.5 days a week that I'm actually working, right? I purposely set aside 2 days for volunteer work. So that's something that, I have to protect because of the fact that if in general, there's always, depending on what you want to do, there's always a limit of how many clients you can have and how many clients where you have to trade hours for money. Because that's a big trap that you can get caught into is you'll end up working more than you did at your 9-to-5 job, which sounds like, whoa, why is that even possible? But it is, because there's no break there. You're always at home. You're always on your laptop, and it's very easy to just keep on working and keep on working. And before you know it, it's 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock at night, and you're like, wow, I've been working for 12 hours straight. I would never do this at my day job because at 5 o'clock, I'm out of there. And so I think passive income is the key to being able to keep that steady, right? To be able to say, I have an income stream coming in on the side that I don't have to spend a whole lot of time on. And sometimes the people use the term semi-passive income because it's not like it's 100% automatic. But it's the difference between I'm spending 10 hours a week on this client for this amount of money, or I'm spending 1 hour a week to generate the same amount of money because of my passive income stream. For instance, like an online course or something, you do a webinar once a week for an hour, and then you sell 10 of them, and all of a sudden you have, $5,000-$10,000 in your bank account that wasn't there because of 1 hour of your webinar. So those types of passive income things usually take a little bit longer to set up, which is why I think if you want to look at step by step, you first kind of get your feet wet with the clients, getting some portfolio work, and try your best to get the retainers. Once you have the retainers and you have enough retainers where you're getting enough money to live off of, that then frees your mind to start thinking of these long-term assets that you could create. So you're going to have to put in that upfront work. That's always going to be there. But if you say, okay, I know I have $10,000 a month in retainers, that's enough for me to live on. I don't need to spend a huge amount of time marketing my freelance business right now because I have enough. Next, what's the next step though? That's the key. You don't just stop there, but the next step. Okay, now I want to build an online course. I'm going to launch it in this amount of time. I'm going to do some work, a little bit of work up front. I'm going to, learn new skills that I'm going to have to learn to get that done. Then that ends up turning into a passive stream income, so that maybe you get, 30, 50, however much thousand a year from that passive income that you don't have to do by working with clients, by trading hours for money. Like there's a limited return on investment when you're doing trading hours for money. Even if you're being paid relatively well compared to somebody with a day job, if you really want to have that lifestyle type of business, passive income is 100% necessary. Otherwise, you're going to get yourself trapped and constantly working for clients.
So I've got to ask,
mm-hmm.
What volunteer work do you do 2 days a week since you're only working 3?
No, actually, I do volunteer ministry work, teaching people about the Bible. I'm one of Jehovah's Witnesses, so so that's kind of one of the reasons. It's one of the reasons I decided to go into freelancing in the first place. So I wanted to make sure that I had that time dedicated to doing what I love, and the work will be supporting that as opposed to like the other way around.
Justin, you have dropped so much information. I just thank you so much for your time. Your website is justinboyerwriter.com. And I predict you are going to be going to conferences.
Yeah, definitely.
As a speaker.
Oh, well, that would be nice too. Definitely.
Uh-huh.
I wouldn't mind that. I wouldn't
We're
mind.
going to stay in touch because you are ready right now to go to a conference as a speaker.
Thank you. I appreciate that vote
We'll
of
talk.
confidence.
I'm a good idea person. Justin Boyer, thank you so much for joining us here on the No Pants Show.
Thanks for having me.
Thank
It
you
was
to
fun.
all of you for your support of the No Pants Show. If you're watching this on YouTube, head on over to Facebook, put in the search bar No Pants Project Community, open community, and click and join, answer the questions, and you will be in a community of approximately 18,000 freelancers at various stages. Remember, Justin, before he was working 3 days a week, doing volunteer work 2 other days, and time off 2 other days, he was working a 9 to 5 job. So he became a freelancer full-time, getting great clients. You can too. So thank you for joining us, and we will see you next time on the No Pants Show.